everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel because spreading the goodness will create good vibes. Today I invite my friend Craig Parsons to share about the tips to answer TOEFL questions. So if you like to elevate your English skill and prepare for your TOEFL examination, watch this one. Check it out! The third question from Faseha from Lombok. She asked, do you have trick to answer structure and written expression in TOEFL?
So this is another aspect of preparation. So giving tips on answering questions is one thing, but the way you learn anything, particularly with language, is through practice and trying different things. So writing is a huge part of English, and the way that you structure sentences is very important. And I know, based on my limited understanding of Indonesian in talking with Anggie, sometimes context is explained a little bit different in English, where we use different tenses and we use punctuation in very different ways. So it's important when you're writing your phrases in English that you consider when you're talking about something. For example, in Indonesian language, everything is in the present, and we don't really change the verb depending on when something is happening. But in English, we conjugate the verb, which means that we change the time of when the verb took place. So, for example, if I say I ran to the shops, I'm using the word ran. It's a different verb to run. So run is the verb, but ran is the past tense version of it. That's an irregular verb, but sometimes we have verbs where we really only add ed to the end of the word to tell that person or the recipient of the conversation that it took place in the past. So if we consider the verb cook, like I like to cook, and if I talk about the future, I'll say, well, tonight we're going to cook fish. But if we're talking about the past, we change the verb. So if I'm talking about food that I was cooking last night, I'll say I cooked the fish last night. And I know that's something that people who are used to other languages will need to get used to. You really need to look at changing those verbs, because that tells the reader when you're talking about something.
All right. So yeah, I think I agree with Craig, because in Indonesia we really use kata dasar, and kata dasar, the verb or the word that we use, it's just like that. We just need to add some words to explain that is it past or is it today, now, or in the future. Like for example, we use for the past like sudah, and then for now like sedang, or in the future akan. But in English we need to learn about the variation of the changing of words, like using ed, or even completely different words, like the different words, for example, like no, new, non, and new, right? Is it right? I'm still learning too. So now is verb 1, verb 2 is new for the past, and non is for future tense. progress, something like that. I
Yep.
still not remember everything. And yeah, I just want to say that some words are completely different, but some words are still the same. Like read, read. Like it's it's nothing different with the writing form, but the way we say it's still the same. So this is the complicated that is English grammar, distinct to Indonesian language. So I think practice practice is the key for you to learn about the grammar and also answering the written expression that is in the question.
And there are social media communities who learn languages, so you can always check in. I'm sure there are English learning groups where people exchange written essays to review for each other. Sometimes you might find in your local city there are language exchanges. So I like to study Spanish myself, and even after 2 years in Latin America, I'm by no means an expert. So I maintain my practice just by finding language groups in my city here, and we have many native Spanish speakers here, so I can ask them for advice. But I have to fail first, which means that I have to show them, well, I'm not very good at writing this sentence or speaking this sentence, but I'm going to try anyway so that you can help me. So don't be shy about going out and practicing, whether it's written or verbal.
Yeah, the point that Craig just mentioned is very important, because having a failure in your life is very important to create a process. Once you fail one time, you know what's the wrong side, and then you can fix it in the future, so you never wrong again. So we always learn from our experience, and I think it's good to have a failure experience in your life. And then I want to read from the viewers. Some of them are giving comment, Craig. So before I read the comment, thank you for you all that you still join with us, and welcome to this IG live. We are sharing about the tips of answering TOEFL questions. And now I want to read from Agung. Agung said, would you please recommend me about how much hours a day that I need to learn about English or TOEFL based on that English as my second language in my country? Thank you. So Agung also part of my member of the WhatsApp group. Yeah. So he asked recommendation how many hours a day that he needs to spend to increase his score for TOEFL.
I think there's no right number to that, but just like with anything that you're trying to learn, there's no time wasted. So you need to keep it up. So at a minimum, you need to be spending 2 hours a day at least thinking about English in some way. So either you're listening to a podcast or watching a movie or thinking of your favorite topic and getting them to write about it, getting yourself to write about it, or going online and finding someone to practice with at least 2 hours a day, because you need to keep your brain really active and thinking about English as much as possible. It's the same with any language. If you can get hold of people who speak English, whether they're native speakers or just learning, really take the opportunity to work with them. There's a lot to be said about studying overseas and studying in countries. That's a really quick way to learn, because as soon as you walk out the door, you can't survive without having to speak in English. Yeah. So there's a lot to be said about doing that. We can't. The whole world's not really traveling right now, So I understand that's a little bit difficult, but there's a lot of technology available for people to practice languages.
Yeah, and I think to add that point, English is a key of it's like a window to see the world, you know. So if you want to see the world, you need to have an English skill. It's a very basic needs that you need to have. Once you go out of Indonesia or whatever country that you have and speaking local language, you'll need English to speak and to understand each other. Well, I go to another comment from Daphe, Daphe. He said, he or she, is grammatical crucial when we are going to interview for speaking skills on IELTS? Thanks and in advance. Oh, we're talking about TOEFL now. However, it's okay. It's because it's the same English skill. So, is grammatical crucial
Yes,
when
it's
we
very
are doing
important.
the interview speaking?
It's it's important whether you're doing an exam or whether you're just talking normally. You really have to be mindful of grammar in English because it informs the flow of speaking, which is really important because it adds to the context of what you're trying to say. So, commas and full stops and question marks. Question marks are indicative of a verbal inflection to note that it's a question. All of these things need to be considered. Um, I'm not sure about the entrance exam, but the ultimate exam, your examination, grammar is very important. It's they're all equal aspects of what you're trying to achieve in your studies.
Yeah, based on my experience when I did a interview like speaking test, it's really helpful to use grammar. Like the examiner will understand what I'm saying when I tell, like for example, I do with the present tense, then he or she will understand that, oh, I'm telling you about now, it's happening now. But when I use simple past tense, they will understand directly that it's already happened in the past. So it's really crucial, the grammatical use for our speaking skill in the test of IELTS or TOEFL. Okay, before we go to the next questions, I'm going to another question. Jay also the member of my WhatsApp group. They are so, I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of you guys because you are all really having a good energy and very spirit for having an enthusiast to have Australia World Scholarship, and I really support you guys no matter what. And Jay asked how the simple way to understand spelling from each country, because there is differences between British and American, so and also Australian English. So how to what is the simple way to understand that's different spelling?
So the the American English it deviated from the original British English, during colonial times in the US. But Australia generally conforms to British English standards, and they're not terribly different. Um, they're actually really minute. One example is the use of Z. So in the US, they use Z for in a lot of words where we would normally use S, but pronounce it Z, kind of sound out of it. So there are quite a few words there that will sound the same, whether it's British English or American English, But Americans, when they pronounce a Z, kind of Z sound, they actually use the letter Z, and the letter Z in British or Australian English, it's very, very rarely used from a written perspective. But that's really the only one. The other example is OU combination. So Americans will spell color COLOR, and we pronounce color COLOUR. Yeah, and there are quite a few examples like that. I think with your study and your examination, it's not something to overly stress about at this point in time. I can't see it being part of an entrance exam, but you might have some questions around the differences between British English and American English.
Yeah, I think to add Craig's point, that my experience to understand between English, American English and British English is that I learn from watching movies, yes, and also I make friends with them. So by joining some organizations, international organizations, you can elevate your leadership skills and managerial, also organizational skills. But you can also be benefit with your English skill, and you can learn directly from them. Like you can directly experience, listen to different words that they pronounce between English, British, and American English. British English and American English. So yeah, that's my additional. That's all the video of the tips for answering TOEFL questions. And if you have any questions around this theme, you can put in the comment below. And if you think that this video is very useful, you can like, share, comment, and subscribe. So that's all for today, guys, and I'll see you soon